show solidarity with the U.S. president after he tests positive for COVID. Gambia Press Union Award Committee reveals shortlisted nominees for 2020. Tunisia's plastic industry ravaged by coronavirus pandemic. These and more coming up on The World Today. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. I am Sohna Tunkara and now the news in detail. U.S. President Donald Trump and his First Lady Melania Trump have tested positive for the coronavirus as announced by Trump on Twitter in the early hours of Friday. Trump said both he and the First Lady are beginning their quarantine immediately and hopes they will beat the virus together. According to President Trump's physician, Sean P. Conley, Trump and Ms. Melania will isolate themselves in the White House. Trump is expected to continue carrying out his duties without disruption while recovering. However, if things get worse and Trump becomes very ill, he will be able to temporarily relinquish power under the U.S. Constitution's 25th Amendment and then reclaim it as soon as he declares himself able. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson wished Donald Trump and Melania Trump a speedy recovery in a tweet on Friday. The Russian President Putin also sent a telegram to Mr. Trump saying he hopes Trump's inherent vitality, good spirits and optimism will help his cope with the dangerous virus. Donald Trump, who played down the coronavirus as it ravaged America, is one of more than 7 million people in the U.S. to be infected with the virus. More than 200,000 million people in America have died from the virus, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. Now, from that, speaking for the first time since the National Assembly's rejection of the draft constitution on the 22nd of September, the chairman of the Constitutional Review Commission described critics who claim that the draft constitution is plagiarized as merely stoking emotions to back up their rejections of the draft bill. He told a press conference on Thursday that constitutions all over the world draw inspiration from other constitutions because they are not copyrighted. Julden Jaiswari has the rest of that story.
The lead draftsman said the Gambia's Constitutional Review Commission has not blindly adopted or adapted constitutional provisions from elsewhere after the draft rejecting lawmakers accused the commission of plagiarism. Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallo said the commission thoroughly reviewed and applied them in line with the Gambia's national circumstances, especially with regard to the opinions expressed by the populace during their consultations.
It is unfortunate that a tiny minority of critics have leveled the claim that the draft constitution was plagiarized. The CRC, with its team of experienced draftspersons and international consultants and drafters, has not given any credence to such claims and essentially viewed the claims as merely stoking emotions to back up the critics' rejection of the draft constitution. Indeed, there have been those that never said anything good of the CRC from the time of its inception. For them, it was personal.
The draft constitution has been hailed by many as representing the wishes and aspirations of the Gambian people, but some lawmakers claim that the bill was plagiarized from Kenya's 2010 constitution as they voted against the draft. However, Justice Jallo said international experts on constitutional law advise reliance on best constitutional models for the development of new constitutions.
It is perfectly acceptable and indeed encouraged in the legislative drafting world that drafters of laws may draw inspiration from other written laws by adopting specific provisions thereof or adapting such provisions to special circumstances. This is not controversial, well, except in the Gambia. One only has to review various Commonwealth countries to see evidence of adoptions or adaptation.
The CRC chair stated that the constitutional history of the Gambia shows that the 1970 constitution drew a lot of inspiration from the Jamaican constitution of 1962, which it adapted.
The 11 chapters of the 1970 constitution are essentially the same as those of the 10 chapters of the Jamaican constitution. Similarly, Chapter 3 of the 1970 constitution was adapted from Chapter 3 of the Jamaican constitution. The minor differences are in the areas of protection of persons detained during a period of public emergency, which the Jamaican constitution did not have. Similarly, the Jamaican constitution had no provision on prohibition of slavery and forced labor, which the 1970 constitution adapted from the European Convention on Human Rights. In a similar vein, the 1997 constitution of the Republic of the Gambia that governs us now drew enormous inspiration from the constitution of Ghana. That is constitution building. Trying to denigrate the toil and hard work of the CRC on this issue has been most unfortunate.
The chair of the Constitutional Review Commission added that there is a lot of harmonization of laws in the European Union, the Caribbean Community and Eastern Caribbean states. Therefore, the Gambia should not be left behind in that journey for the sake of sensationalism. For iAfrica News, I am Julden Suare.
The CRC chairman says rejection of the constitution is nothing but just a mere token to back their claims, rather. Now, the Committee for the National Journalism Awards on Thursday unveiled the list of nominees in various categories ahead of the National Journalism Awards. This year's award will, for the first time, be held virtually due to the coronavirus pandemic. More of that in this report. A total of 188 journalists submitted entries in 13 categories for the 5th edition of the National Journalism Awards, which is organized by the Gambia Press Union. The award honors and recognizes hard-working journalists for their outstanding performances in the stories they report on and their contribution towards national development. Lamin Jaite, a member of the awards committee, said it is important to recognize the work of journalists.
Also, journalists, even during this period, it is made much more vivid, the role that we play. A lot of people are away in their homes and sitting down and watching, but the journalists are the ones who go out in the field and bring us those stories for us to enjoy reading or hearing on our radio stations or watching. So the hard work that they do has to be recognized. And also, I mean, journalism, arts, and these are some of the reasons why it is important that at least at the end of the day, we give each other a tap on the back to say, well done, your story is great, you've done this, you've gone. We don't have it. We go out cap in hand to people to say, oh, institutions help us, say thank you to our journalists. So because of the situation, economically, most businesses are not very they're not viable at the moment. They're not having a lot of profit because of the footfall has gone down, and they're not having much profit. And some of the institutions that have planned something have cancelled most of their commitments. So it's difficult to get funding.
The Gambia Press Union's National Journalism Award is increasingly becoming popular, with the competition on quality journalism getting higher every year. The 2020 awards will be televised on different media outlets and on social media on October 24th. For iAfrica TV, Sohna Tunkara. Outstanding journalists will be awarded for outstanding performance on the 24th of October this year. Now, land disputes in communities are increasingly becoming a major problem in the Gambia. Families and relatives have become enemies within their communities due to land conflicts. However, the Minister of Lands is making efforts to ease the problem, according to Information Minister Ibrahim Silla. More of that in this report by Fatoumata Kasim.
However, the Minister of Information, Ibrahim Silla, said the Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs is currently working to address the problem of land and natural resources conflict. Silla told journalists during his weekly briefing on Friday that the Ministry of Lands is currently working on developing a legal database for land ownership as part of the solution being devised.
As part of efforts to combat land-related disputes in the country, the Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs is currently working on the development of a systematic cadastral mapping system for the Gambia. Cadastral mapping is an information system and legal database for land ownership and usage in a given country. Extensive progress has been made so far, and when finalized, the new system will ameliorate land and natural resources conflicts in the Gambia.
Minister Silla said while plans have been worked on for the introduction of the systematic mapping of land ownership, the Ministry of Lands is currently using a GPS coordinate system as a short-term measure to minimize land-related conflicts.
The short-term measure allows each parcel of land to be geo-referenced using its coordinates as a unique identifier of a precise geographic location of a land within a particular area. This upgrade will effectively help the ministry mitigate incidents of leasing one parcel of customary land to multiple users.
Issues relating to land ownership in the Gambia escalated in the last decade, especially within the Greater Banjul area and the West Coast region. The dispute, which had led to the loss of some lives, are mainly as a result of an increase in the urban demographic and an upsurge in property values. Fatmata Kasim, reporting for iAfrica TV.
From that story by Fatmata Kasim, we go with a short commercial break and continue with the rest of our stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now to the rest of our stories. The coronavirus pandemic has further affected the Tunisian plastic industry, which has become one of the success stories for the North African country. More than 20,000 people are working in about 500 plastic producing companies, but they shut down due to the pandemic. As operations resume in some companies, the health officials warn against compliancy, saying the virus has affected almost every sector of life. Details of that in this report.
The plastics sector, which falls under the national chemicals industry, has been one of Tunisia's success stories in recent years, with free trade zones along its coast becoming home to hundreds of manufacturers. The vice president of the National Union and Chamber of Plastic Processor Manufacturers at the Tunisian Confederation of Industry and Handicrafts says there are 500 plastic producing companies, employing 23,000 people in the country.
Around 40% of plastic producers are primarily exporting companies to car and aircraft manufacturers, as well as to the wires and cable sector. Our clients and partners are international companies. There are 10 important plastic manufacturers in Tunisia, which collectively employ 5,000 people, while two-thirds of the remaining companies employ less than 200 people.
Omar Shakshak explains that the problems facing Tunisia's plastics sector started before the coronavirus crisis. The onset of the pandemic has exacerbated the situation. Accordingly, exports have plunged by 90% over the past 6 months. Therefore, the path to recovery is still very slow.
The problems started before the pandemic. The coronavirus crisis has only further complicated the situation. The ban on single-use plastic bags in 2018 caused the bankruptcy of 120 small and medium-sized plastic producers and enterprises because they could not cope with the new and expensive biodegradable technology.
Many factories have now resumed production, albeit at lower capacity. This enterprise, which exports to Algeria, Libya, Senegal, Gabon, Mauritania, is running at 50% capacity. Tunisian health professionals, however, fear a second wave of the pandemic. In fact, many clusters and outbreaks have been reported in some industrial units.
The pandemic caused many problems since March. We lost the Algerian and Libyan markets because land transport stopped when the borders were closed. We resumed shipping to Senegal because maritime transport was not interrupted. Our staff is respecting the health protocols, but social distancing complicates our work. The situation is very difficult.
The National Union and Chamber of Plastic Processor Manufacturers asserts that importing plastics, raw materials and exporting local production to Europe and other international markets is a very expensive and time-consuming process because commercial ports in Tunisia are not well equipped to cope with the surge of activity. According to the Tunisian Confederation of Industry and Handicrafts, plastic production in the country fell by around 20% between March and June of this year, while exports shrank by 90%. Professionals have urged the state to intervene in order to prevent the bankruptcy of dozens of companies.
The coronavirus continues to affect different sectors of life, which Tunisia's plastic industry is not an exception. Now coming back to the Gambia, because Gambians have yet to come to grips with the fact that the draft constitution was rejected by the National Assemblies, as both sides of the divide blame each other for its failure. An opposition supporter has, however, narrowed it down to being a part of simultaneous failures of the Barrow government as the transitional processes stall. Details of that in this report.
A series of commissions were established by the Barrow government as part of the Gambia's transitional program following the end of a 22-year dictatorship. Among them, a commission to investigate Yaya Jammeh's financial dealings, a truth commission, and a constitutional review commission. While the commission's new draft constitution was one of the most awaited outcomes, the new supreme law was blocked by President Barrow's supporters at the National Assembly on September 22nd. Nyawur Koma, opposition UDP youth chairman in the Kanifing municipality, said the rejection of the draft constitution caps an era of simultaneous failures of the Barrow government on the establishment of commissions. The Barrow government did not make through with any of the commissions established under his regime, Koma told iAfrica Good Morning Africa program.
Faraba Commission failed. Haruna Jammeh probe failed. CRC failed. TRRC is ongoing but no hope and is leading to failure. I'm coming. I'm not done.
But you cannot say this.
The golden lead versus the government of the Gambia case failed. The gun importation by Abubakar Jawara under the carpet. The drug case at the port under the carpet. The Senegalese diplomat raping Gambian girls under the carpet. What, you know how many under the carpet we have?
How about it?
The chairperson of the Constitutional Review Commission, Justice General Suleiman Jallo, told journalists on Thursday that the rejection of the draft Constitution Promulgation Bill 2020 does not mean that it is dead. Mr. Koma agrees, accusing the president of being responsible for the National Assembly's failure to vote the draft Constitution to move to the third reading stage.
It's not dead, but it's in a deep coma.
How can you... What's the difference?
Life support. Deep coma. Life support. Whenever those ventilators are taken out from the system, you go off. That means that you are alive, but with the support of a machine. So the constitution is now on life support, intensive care, and in deep coma, courtesy of Adam Barrow Ahmad and his people.
You are a legend.
The Constitutional Review Commission was established by an Act of Parliament to review the Jammeh-era 1997 Constitution and come up with a new supreme law for the country. However, parliamentarians rejected the draft in its second reading stage after allies of President Barrow voted against a term limit proposal that was to include his first term retroactively. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
UDP supporter accuses Barrow of being the main reason for the failures of commissions. Now from that, survivors and perpetrators of Rwanda's 1994 genocide have begun a reconciliatory process in local communities 26 years after the catastrophic incident. The reconciliation process is meant to bring peace between victims and perpetrators living in the same communities. the country's National Unity and Reconciliation Commission supported the cause initiated by citizens from one of the regions affected during the genocide. Details in this report.
Mundia Gaspard is a resident of Narawana sector in Rudindo district and is a genocide perpetrator. He lives in the same neighborhood with Murekaze Anastasi, a genocide survivor whose relatives and child was killed by the attackers, including her current neighbor, Mundia. But currently, Murekaze and Mundia live side by side. They say they have embraced forgiveness and reconciled following admission quest for clemency from the genocide perpetrator, Mundia.
I did not expect him to be among the killers of my family members, but there is a time he started acting awkwardly and insure every time we met. I was not sure why he acted like that, because I had no clue of what he did. One day, while in the trading center, a person they were together in prison revealed to me that Mundia felt the guilt every time he saw me. He told me that he was among the killers of my child.
When I finished my prison sentence, I was still guilty every time I saw her. I decided to face her and ask for forgiveness and told her everything from the bottom of my heart. After a while, Murekaze Anastasi decided to forgive Mundia Gaspard. The survivor and the perpetrator are now neighbors again.
I have stone quarries and he helps me to get clients.
She hires me to do farming in her fields. There are no issues between us anymore. Thanks to organizations like Ifundo Ryamahoro, an association that brings together survivors of the genocide against the Tutsi and perpetrators residing in Narawana sector. Over 13 gachacha cases involving compensation worth 2.8 million Rwandan francs, plus 14 cases involving 125 people and compensation worth 1.8 million Rwandan francs have been resolved. Mayor of Rudindo district, Kairanga Emmanuel, says that there is growing will among genocide survivors and perpetrators to reconcile and resolve pending cases related to looting of property during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. There have been some great achievements. I will take an example of Rusiga sector, which experienced unspeakable atrocities during the genocide and many cases of looting. But due to reconciliation programs, perpetrators have come forth to ask for forgiveness, and that has resulted into resolving several gachacha cases. We had over 17,000 cases. We are now left with 150 pending involving compensation worth Rwandan francs 25 million. There is still a long way to go, but we are happy with the strides taken. Executive Secretary of the National Unity and Reconciliation Commission, Ndaisaba Fidel, says that such stories reflect Rwanda's strides in quest for unity and reconciliation. The initiative by citizens of Narawana sector who have decided to work together to heal and reconcile is a great contribution towards the reconciliation of the Rwandan society. Most important, this develops trust among people and brings about peace as a result in the communities, allowing people to go freely about their daily work without fear or guilt. During the ongoing Unity and Reconciliation Month, Narawana sector seeks to resolve all pending cases of compensation. According to figures from NURC, 90 compensation cases related to the genocide against the Tutsi have been resolved around the country.
Now from that, let's see what's on the sport world. Gambia's national team coach Tom Senfred has released the final squad for the Scorpions training camp in Algarve, Portugal from the 5th to the 13th of October. The Belgian coach previously announced a 40-man previously squad 2 weeks ago, but has now trimmed the team to 25 for the 10 days training camp ahead of 2 international friendlies. Ibrahim Akibi Sanko takes us more.
The Gambia will play against Congo-Brazzaville on the 9th and against Guinea on the 13th in Algarve, Portugal's southern region, which is known for its Atlantic beaches and golf resorts. The 2 international friendlies are to serve as warm-up ahead of the double encounter with Gabon in November in qualifiers for the next Africa Cup of Nations, which is to be played in Cameroon. Gambian duo Ibu Adams and Ibu Ture, who are playing in League One in England, have opted to stay with their clubs instead of returning to national duties after a few caps. Former Gamtel FC sensational striker and informed CSKA Sofia striker Ali Sow is not included in Tom Semfer's final 25-man squad. Meanwhile, Combo North-born duo of Sieninjai and Musa Juara have their first senior call-up to the Gambian national team. Finland-based goalkeeper Salif Senghor, Noah Sonko, Robin Jata, Maudo Jaju Chuka, and Ablai Sanyang are the new inclusions who will be hoping to earn their first international cap for the Gambia. According to the Gambia Football Federation, the following players will not be available: Kodi Drame, Lamin Jallo, Alassane Jata, Modu Baro, Ablai Jallo, Ibu Adams, Yusfa Bob, and Siri Janko. Their absence is due to family issues, injuries, moves to new clubs, COVID quarantine travel issues, preferring clubs ahead of national team, and document issues. Gambia is currently on top of Group D in the AFCON qualifiers with 4 points, after a brilliant 3-1 win against Angola and a scintillating 3-0 draw against DR Congo. The Gambia will lock horns with Gabon in November in what is promised to be a pulsating encounter. Reporting for iAfrica TV, I'm Ibrahima Kebi Sonko.
Well, viewers, that was all from me and my team. You can reach on www.iafrica.tv for more of our programs, or join my colleague Mariama Cham for the latest national stories. Wishing you a great weekend ahead. Bye for now.